So, cancelled election, different candidate, same outcome in the rerun of the first round of Romania's presidential poll. The pro-Trump Eurosceptic George Simion garnering 40% of the vote ahead of the May 18th runoff. Simion, whose party sits in the same voting bloc as Giorgia Meloni's in the European Parliament, skipping the usual victory speech at campaign headquarters. Instead, a pre-recorded message where he pledged allegiance to banned pro-Russian candidate Georgescu, the latter who back in November, thanks to a foreign-backed TikTok campaign, went from an unknown to the favorite. Simion even cast his vote alongside Georgescu. He'll be facing reformist pro-EU Bucharest Mayor Nucusor Dan, whose views are diametrically opposed on Europe, on Ukraine, and NATO, which is due to boost its presence in Romania to 10,000 troops. What's changed in the European Union's newest member? A member that's boasted steady growth, but also huge income inequality, governance and corruption issues. More broadly, how do former Warsaw Pact nations view the closening ties between the Trump administration and the Kremlin? Romania's runoff will be the same day as Poland's own presidential election. Where do loyalties and interests lie in today's fast-changing Eastern European world? Today in the France 24 debate, we're asking why there's Romania's MAGA surge. With us from Strasbourg, he's vice chair of the ECR group in the European Parliament, George Peperia, from George Simion's Alliance for the Union of Romanians party is with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Good evening.
From Brittany, she's a former Paris spokesperson for the European Commission. Adina Revol is professor at Sciences Po, author of Breaking with Russia, the European Energy Awakening. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
Welcome back as well, digital diplomacy consultant Reina Stambuliska, the CEO of RS Strategy. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be joined shortly from Brussels by Boris Nyman, Associate Professor of Economy at the University of Paris-Est-Créteil. You can, by the way, listen, like, and subscribe to the France 24 debate wherever podcasts are streamed. Let's begin with the very latest. Sunday's result bringing down the government in Romania. The under-pressure Prime Minister, Marcel Ciolacu, stating that he's asked his Social Democratic Party to leave the pro-Western coalition government. The SPD, which failed to get into the second round. George Simion, a win that has projected a 38-year-old sovereignist onto the world stage. Eliza Herbert has more.
After the first results came in, a jubilant George Simion addressed his supporters. The right-wing nationalist candidate won more than 40% of the first-round vote and will go to the runoff on the 18th of May.
This is the victory of those who have not lost hope, of those who still believe in Romania, a free, respected, and sovereign country.
The 38-year-old Romanian voted on Sunday alongside Călin Georgescu, a symbolic gesture representing the pair's alignment throughout the political turmoil that has divided the country. Georgescu was a far-right candidate and frontrunner for the presidency in the previous election late last year, until Romania's Constitutional Court abruptly annulled the results, citing Russian interference to sway the vote in Georgescu's favour. Classified documents revealed suspicious TikTok accounts as well as the use of paid social media influencers and cyber-attacks from external forces. As an investigation was opened and Georgescu was barred from running, Simion remained firmly by his side.
If the voice of the people will say, we want Mr. Georgescu in power, we will take him to power.
Simion was born in the eastern city of Focșani and went on to study business and administration in Bucharest. During his master's, he focused on communist-era crimes, and his early civic activism involved campaigning for reunification with Moldova. In 2019, Simion founded the AUR Nationalist Party and has been an MP since 2020. He refuses to be labelled as far-right, but is openly anti-gay marriage, a Eurosceptic and a vocal supporter of US President Donald Trump. He also opposes military aid to neighbouring Ukraine.
And we are hoping that peace will be found through the efforts of President-elect Trump.
Simion goes into the second round in the lead, but will have to face off against Bucharest's pro-EU mayor to take the reins of the country.
Let me begin with you, George Piperia. It was 28% of the vote in that cancelled first round back in November for Calin Georgescu. Here it's on a little more than 40%. Why the surge?
First of all, let me tell you something. We are not Eurosceptical. George Simion is not Eurosceptical at all. We are for our continuing and long-last membership of European Union and also NATO. What is different in our position towards the European Union, it's about the continuous slide of the bureaucracy of this European Union towards authoritarian regime, even totalitarian. We are criticizing this bureaucracy because of the fact that they had very many failures from the sanitary point of view, climate change point of view, economic point of view. That's it. We are not Eurosceptical, I repeat. It's the opposite. We are here to stay, and we are here to contribute to the well-being and the welfare of the European population, and of course for peace, and of course for an environment which is clean and which is good for the next generation.
When you talk about a totalitarian bend in the European Union, what do you mean?
I'm speaking about the fact that, for example, today, in the plenary session of Strasbourg, I am in Strasbourg in this moment, there was a debate over the legal basis of the so-called rearm program, which means the militarization of the European Union. The program started by Ursula von der Leyen, Frau Ursula von der Leyen. The jury committee, and I am a member of this jury committee, says that this legal basis is not okay because of the fact that it's a way to skip the authorization of the European Parliament, to skip the Parliament. And this is an example of many. What the Commission did starting the pandemic's period was to continuously take over in a hostile manner some competencies from the European Parliament and also from the member states. This is why I'm speaking about the slide to the authoritarian regime. And you know, this is one of the reasons because the Romanian people decided to vote for George Simion and not for the establishment people. And we are speaking about nearly 4 million votes in this moment. It's practically double than the votes for Georgescu in 24th of November.
Yeah,
this means that
let's take a look at those. Let's take a look at those results again. Turnout in the first round marginally higher than last November on 53% of the eligible voters. And here we see the chart, George Simion with nearly 41% of the vote, in fact. The question now is whether 2 weeks is enough for the opposition to coalesce around his runoff rival. Let's listen to the reformist mayor of Bucharest, Nicu Surdan.
And I call on all Romanians to be part of this battle. And I am optimistic that we will win it, that Romania will maintain the Western direction, and I have hopes that with all the resources that this country has, it will take a few years. But it will be in the place it deserves. Thank you.
Adina Revola is clapping at campaign headquarters. That's normal, but can he overcome this deficit? He's got to make up a lot of votes in just 2 weeks.
Definitely, time is very important.
Go ahead, Adina Revola.
Yes, definitely time is very important, but let's do remember that only 9 million Romanians voted last Sunday. So there are still 10 million Romanians which didn't vote. So basically, the major challenge now is mobilization. And this is extremely important because what George Simion proposes is clearly an anti-European program. And what's very important also is something even more important. George Simion says Romania won't help any longer Ukraine. So basically, if Romania stops helping Ukraine from a military perspective, that means that George Simion will help Vladimir Putin win in Ukraine. And that's a major stick for Romania's future, because Ukrainians are today fighting for Europe freedom. That's where our freedom and our future as Europe are at stake in Ukraine. So this is really major and important. And
Adina, let me ask you
a comment on what has been said, which is very important, because I think us as Romanian, we cannot treat the Europe or European Commission as totalitarian, because we know what totalitarian regime means. We lived under Ceausescu, and we know that totalitarian regime means no food, no freedom. And under European Commission and in the European Union, we do have freedom and we do have prosperity. And it's a major difference between totalitarian regimes and the European Union.
Adina Revol, I'm putting you the same question that I put at the outset to George Piperia, which is, why was it 41% of the vote for Mr. Simion? There's going to need to be a coalition, and we're seeing with the resignation of the government, we're also seeing one of the candidates who came in fourth, the former Social Democrat Prime Minister, Victor Ponta, who may hedge his bets and support George Simion. So why is it that there's been this first round surge?
For sure, there was a vote against the establishment, because the coalition, which was governing Romania since 2021, has failed. That's for sure. But what I see as a major dynamic behind this vote is the fact that Romania, known a very important economic growth, even this year is 3.5% of growth, but there was also very high inflation. Romania has the second highest inflation in the EU. And when we speak about inflation, we speak about purchasing power. And when you have inflation, basically the poorest of the poor are suffering more than the upper class. And basically, for me, that was very important, because we had that energy crisis provoked by Vladimir Putin. We had inflation over Europe. And in Romania, it was extremely high. And that has a major impact on the life of citizens. And the coalition in power did not brought results. So basically, the coalition failed to bring concrete results to the citizen when it comes to purchasing power.
Reina Stamolicia, your thoughts on why this was first round result?
I very much tend to join what Adina Revol was just saying. What strikes me when I compare it to Bulgaria, where I'm from originally, is the way that the diaspora voted in the Romania elections. So in Bulgaria, the diaspora votes towards progressive pro-European parties. In Romania, what comes about from the results is that the diaspora votes, well, quite strongly for George Simion.
Why?
Right. So there are different reasons for this. It's perhaps a little too early, but what I'm seeing is people are fed up with whatever has been happening until now, that establishment aspect of things. So they're looking at anti-system candidates, right? People who can, we've never tested them before so far. The devil we know, it didn't work. So, what could it be worse? It couldn't, because you have families whose kids, they are abroad, as soon as they are like 18 or something, right? And you have a situation where the productive power, if you like, of the country, both Bulgaria but also Romania, is not in the country anymore. You have a situation where up to a third of the population doesn't live in the country, right? Which is, I mean, you don't see this in France or in other countries. Those are people who are going to search for a better life elsewhere, right? So when you talk to people, those who are staying, basically what they want is things to go better, to be better. And those who are outside, many of them, they just want to go back and have a normal life rather than being the bread earning force of the family.
Who sends remittances back.
Right. And so, and we saw this also during the COVID crisis, where, for example, 1 out of 10 emergency doctors in Germany is either from Bulgaria or from Romania. And what we had in Romania, for example, is that you had 1 emergency doctor for 1,000 people, which is crazy. I mean, you don't have this in other, more developed, let's say, countries. And you add to this an influx of Ukrainian refugees, right? But also a situation where it's the same in Bulgaria, not so much in Poland, but Romania and Bulgaria are seeing really lessening support in the public opinion for whatever is happening in Ukraine, for the refugees, for the military, like the war situation, and so on and so forth. And you add to that mix, to that sort of very complex and fragile situation, you add to this a huge disinformation wave that's been there for some time, and it's installed, it's developing, and you get a widening gap between people, and a flailing trust in institutions.
Flailing trust in institutions. Before we go into what happened back in November, maybe do a bit of forensics on that. Among the international reactions, that of the French far-right leader Marine Le Pen, who herself faces a ban on running for office after her recent conviction for embezzling EU funds for party staffers back home. She said, Romania just offered Madame von der Leyen a very pretty boomerang. Your reaction to that tweet?
Yeah, it's trolling. I mean, it's that bickering is part of why people don't trust the political class anymore, right? Don't you have anything else to do rather than, do that sort of things online? So, and what we see is also that sort of, pettiness displayed everywhere that is joined by
But there's this narrative.
Campaigns.
This narrative that the November election was stopped because the suits in Brussels didn't like the possible outcome.
So that's part of this general anti-EU campaigns that you see that tend to have some EU bad, NATO bad, Russia good flavor, right? But they're specific for each country. So, for example, in Romania or in Bulgaria, you will see this as, the results didn't please Ursula von der Leyen, so she suppressed them. And you're like, the EU doesn't have that power. Or you'd have this in Bulgaria, like, we don't want to have the euro, we don't want to join the Eurozone because all the savings of the old people will be, because of the joining the euro, will be mobilized, will be taken by the EU. And you're like, that's not reality.
Let me bring in Georgia Pipiria on this, because there are a few things here. First of all, George Simion, he's stated over and over again, he's not anti-Ukraine. He just doesn't want to give money for Ukraine. He's criticized Vladimir Putin in the past. So my question is, when you see him casting his ballot alongside Kalin Georgescu, is he going to have to perhaps distance himself a little bit if he wants to win in the runoff?
Yeah, first of all, Russia is not good. We already said several times, including in front of the European Parliament, in the interior of the European Parliament, that the war in Ukraine is an aggression war of the Russian regime. So Russia
which is not the opinion of
nevertheless,
Georgescu. He's saying he's overtly pro-Putin.
No. You are mistaken. This is a cliche. This is a wrong understanding from the part of the European Union. Georgescu never said that Russia is good. And the EU is bad. But we are speaking now about George Simion. So let me come back to what I tried to say. In the same time, European Union is not wonderful. European Union is continuously failing in what they're doing because of the fact that they continuously try to help Ukraine to go into this war and with no result. We need to have a discussion, a negotiation, a real negotiation in order to stop this war, because this war is destroying, first of all, that country, that population, and also is bankrupting us, the European Union. About that, my colleague, my Romanian colleague, which is understood an associate professor in Paris, said something about the economic growth. It was an economic growth, but it was a pathological kind of economic growth in Romania. And this is the model of the European Union. Why? Because of the fact that first, it was growth based on credit. We are over-indebted in this moment, and we have a very, very big deficit in this moment in Romania. And second, there are 6 million people in Romania which are poor. And this means that this economic growth maybe was a benefit for the establishment people, but not for the common people. And the common people, especially the common people, are the people which voted for Georgescu in 2024 and now double voted for George Simion. This is practically the explanation. And about the Romanian of the diaspora, they started to see that something wrong is with the economic and social European model, which used to be a model of welfare. And in the European Union, in this moment, there are at least 103 million people which are also poor. So it's something wrong with the social model in the European Union, and this is one of the biggest issues that we raised and want to solve it in Romania and also in the European Union, because it's about common people. You know, institution, even bureaucracy is not for establishment people, it's for common people. For common people with no help for anybody, with no social network. Even in France is the same. The constitution of Romanian constitution says that we are a democratic and social state where people are the common goal for all the institution, social and democratic. We are not social and democratic anymore in Romania. And this is a thing that we will have to resolve it in the next future.
Let me bring in Adina Revolt on this, because Adina, let me ask you, because you have, it's true that there is a gap, and we saw it in the results from the election between countryside and cities. There is this, sort of polarization inside of Romanian society. Is the reformist mayor of Bucharest the best person to stand for this runoff, or does he represent those city slicker elites? We seem to have, apologies, we have a sound problem. With Skype is gone, so it's not Skype anymore. It's another service, but the video link is, it's back up. Okay, Adina Revolt.
Yes, I was cut, sorry. So it will be the major challenge for Nicu Jordan, for the reformist mayor of Bucharest, to show a vision, because indeed there is a gap between the cities of Romania, which are very well developed and the countryside. So this is for sure. But then on the economic situation of Romania, indeed there is a big deficit. But Romania, let me recall, has a debt which is not so important. So it's for sure there is an issue with the deficit, and the coalition which was in power has a responsibility for that. But I'm wondering also what's the track record of George Simion and his party, because they were part of the European Parliament and also of the National Parliament since 2019. And since then, George Simion did not show a great leadership in redressing Romania's financial situation. On the contrary, on Ukraine, basically, there was no growth. There is no basically George Simion did not engage in order to solve the problems in a negotiation, basically. And also on the economic side, George Simion was not at all involved in the implementation of a recovery plan. I recall that Romania benefited of a 30 billion euros recovery plan, and George Simion was not part of that. And this is something very important, because we are hearing in this debate just one thing, because it's very important, that Europe is a problem, but in fact Europe did transform Romania. What Romania was 20 years ago, Romania has changed thanks to Europe. 100 billion euro have been invested by Europe in Romania in order to change Romania. So this is highly important.
There is the question of what's going to happen going forward, the EU support, but also the support of NATO. We have right now, the French have 1,400 troops deployed. The plan is for NATO to have 10,000 troops stationed in the country by the end of the decade. George Piperia, 10,000 NATO troops, if they are deployed to Romania, that can only be good for the local economy, right?
Yeah, it could be considered as being good for the local economy, but think about this. We are 100 meters behind the line of having a breaking of the NATO alliance between the United States and the European Union. We don't need this kind of breaking up. We need NATO to be great again. We need NATO because of the fact that without NATO, we are in the very near vicinity of Russia. So we need NATO as a guarantee for our security. The problem is that if Trump administration is speaking the truth and they are serious, it might have a chance for Romania to see those troops, 10,000 troops left from Romania. And in this situation, who will replace them? Maybe, probably, I don't know, the French troops. About what my colleague says, George Simion was a visionary leader. 1 month before Ursula von der Leyen, the government of UK and even the administration, Biden administration, announced a program for affordable houses. It was George Simion which first in Europe and practically globally announced an affordable houses program for only 35,000 euros for young people and with no resources people. And this is a kind of economical program, which I repeat is in this moment on the role on the European Union. What is the important in Romania is not only the fact that we do have very wealthy people in the big cities, but it's about the lack of housing. We lack housing in Romania, and as a leadership, you have to have this kind of program. What the so-called pro-Europeans said, no, it is not possible because of the fact that the banks will oppose to this. You have to decide whether or not you need this kind of programs, whether or not you want to help poor people or not.
Reina Stamboliska.
Yeah, so I have a few things to, let's say, object to Mr. Piperea. So I'm very glad to know that one of our MEPs is doing what an MEP has to do, meaning ensuring there are checks and balances vis-a-vis the Commission and the Council, right? So it's good that they're asking questions in plenary and so on and so forth. Thankfully, that's what they've been elected to do, right? Where I'm slightly less happy is to hear the reality of what EU competencies are in terms of social programs, in terms of social policies, the way they are transformed by our MEP here, in the sense that you cannot, in the same time, blame it on the EU for so-called totalitarian terms, and on the other side, whine that the Commission is not doing this or that in terms of social policies, right? I mean, we're talking about the Romanian future president. He's not going to solve any European level social policies whatsoever, A, because he doesn't have the mandate for, and B, because that's not EU competence, right? So, and the whole housing thing, it's good that you brought it up. I'm still speaking. It's good that you brought it up because prices in Romania are, in terms of housing, are still rising, right? So at some point, again, we need to be very clear about what the policies, the announced policies of this, well, successful so far candidate are, and those policies, they are, well, neither democratic nor welfare, because one of them, for example, is that our Călin Georgescu, you know, the faithful candidate that was banned from being elected and holding public office, in the campaign promises of Mr. George Simion, there are three options through which this person, this political figure who cannot hold the office, is to be brought to be even the prime minister. So at some point, I mean, let's be candid here and let's face the facts as they are. I understand that Mr. Piperea has a political affiliation with this, but let's not transform the truth and the reality.
All right, let's talk about this long shadow of Călin Georgescu, which hangs over this election, because having a presidential election annulled is something you rarely see. The French investigative news site Mediapart chronicled sophisticated cyber attacks, including last November's election day, that was subsequently canceled. Attacks coordinated from 33 different countries. Romanian intelligence traces one that crippled the Electoral Commission's graphics to a Russian foreign intelligence unit, APT-29, aka Cozy Bear. It also demonstrated what's known as astroturfing, I didn't know that expression until now, where influencers are pushed to relay certain hashtags and themes. A French government report concludes the following, which is that one of the main prejudices resulting from this manipulation campaign was to alter the confidence of voters in the credibility of electoral processes. The turnout was 53%. It's going to be difficult to expect more than that for this second round, Reina Stambolian?
For our countries, for Bulgaria, for Romania, that's fairly low turnout, right? Still, it's stable. So I don't think it's a question of turnout as much as it is a question of everything that is brewing and of, the general narratives that are being peddled across the media space at large, be it media, like traditional media, but be it also social networks and so on and so forth. And so because you brought this precedent, there is a wide network of Russian disinformation actors called Pravda, which is a collection of more than 190 websites that mimic or are affiliated with actual media businesses, right? With media agencies and things like this. You have those in Bulgaria, you have those in Moldova, you have those in Romania. And those three countries, Moldova being top one, targeted by that network, Romania and Bulgaria come close in the top 5. So, and you have, when you compare them, you have a very interesting way of different narratives being peddled at different times of the campaign. And so you also had...
So it's very sophisticated, is what you're saying?
It's not so much sophisticated as it is extremely present, and it's not your, in your face thing.
All right,
right?
so Moscow pulling the strings only up to a point, says political scientist Sorin Ionita. Let's take a listen.
External meddling, yes, probably it is, because if Russia is everywhere in the region, why would they spare Romania, right? So it's common sense. They probably amplify the noise, but the noise is mostly generated internally, as I said. They probably put some bitcoins in the sound machine.
Bitcoins in the sound machine. For more, we can go to Brussels. And Boris Nyman, professor at Paris Est University, thanks for being with us here in the France 24 debate. That the shadow of that cancelled election looms large, but at the end of the day, Romanians are making their own choices.
Yeah, I think there's already 10 years of very strong Russian influence on, than it was said before, on the region. You can see it in the Balkan. So you can see it actually in Serbia also very strongly. And what you see actually is a deep test of the how people will vote, what they prefer. And you see what happened in the Balkans in the 80s and the 90s was this propaganda and things. And I think Romania is also a test for at the moment. But I would just say that the turnout is important because there's a clear problem concerning the number of people voting. We have that all in Europe. We have this problem because if you have not a lot of people voting, of course, the extremists are doing a much larger percentage. So,
although we had a snap legislative election,
turnout,
we had a snap legislative election, Boris, here in France, where turnout was very high, and the National Rally got a historic score.
Yeah. Exactly, but if you follow very well the election in France, the second turn of the election, the people mobilized very strongly against the Rassemblement National, and actually they stopped totally the wave. And Rassemblement National didn't get the majority of elected people because we have the system of two run, which and the second run, the people decided to stop this movement. On the first round, the Front National made, of course, for more than 30%, but that was not enough because they are not entering in coalition with other parties.
Right, and so bringing it back to what's going on in Romania, again, what percentage of this is due to outside influence, the result, and what percentage of it is just the situation we've been discussing on this show, which is the domestic context in a country that's grown, but where inequality has grown with it?
I mean, Russian propaganda is using the problem that we have in all our countries in Europe. But usually we find solution locally by, discussion, by consensus, by policies. The fact that the Russian propaganda is functioning is because it imposes perceptions. So no policy, I'm an economist. We decide to do economic policies to solve inequality. We don't threat people by, saying then that the elites are going to destroy your country or things like that. No, we propose solutions to inequality and redistribution policies. That's what Romania needs. And when you look carefully at this populist party, they have no economic program. There's nothing inside. It's just empty. Rassemblement National is the same. Once they say they're against euro, and another time they say, okay, we take euro. Once they say we will throw out all the foreigners, including some of the European Union people, and then they change. Once they say sometimes we go out of European Union, and now there is no consistency. And why? Because they just play on emotions. That's the way how they do the campaign. Emotionally, they manipulate the emotion of people. So I would not quote some of the television that we have in France doing the same thing, but you can see actually the effect.
What's interesting was that in recent days, the U.S. Embassy in Bucharest has been retweeting quotes of J.D. Vance, the U.S. Vice President, who at the February Munich Security Conference had stated, "You can believe it's wrong for Russia to buy social media advertisements to influence your elections. We certainly do. But if your democracy can be destroyed with a few $100,000 of digital advertising from a foreign country, then it wasn't very strong to begin with." Adina Revol, what was your reaction when you heard J.D. Vance say that?
Well, it was clearly a reaction where I clearly asked myself if the United States are still an ally for Europe, and I was wondering if the United States are now an ally of Vladimir Putin, because stating this in Munich in front of the European leaders is clearly in an optic of is clearly in a confrontational optic with Europe. And since then, what we saw from J.D. Vance and the Trump administration is a clear admiration of Vladimir Putin and a lot of criticism towards Europe and its member states. So this is clearly something very important, changing in the geopolitics of the world.
Giorgio Piperia, do you see Russia and the United States now as allies?
Of course, the United States is still an ally. It's a strategic partner of Romania. Russia not, of course. You have to realize at least the fact that when a country like Romania, which is a European Union member state, do cancel election, meaning 9.5 million votes annulled, not only Romania has a problem, but also the European Union, because it is a precedent which could be repeated in all member states. And this cancellation of the election made from Mr. Georgescu a myth. It's not me. It's not George Simion. It's not the sovereignist which made from this guy, Călin Georgescu, a myth. It's the constitutional courts. It's people like Thierry Breton. It's also people like Ursula von der Leyen.
What was the Constitutional Court supposed to do? He said that he didn't have any campaign expenses, which is clearly a lie.
Just a second. I tell you what Constitutional Court should do. Constitutional Court should cancel the election only based on evidences about a major fraud. There was no evidences. There is no evidences. The fact that you in the French mass media are speaking in this moment about new evidences about what happened in November in Romania, it's a problem in itself, because our interim president, Mr. Bolojan, says there is nothing new in this case, so we don't have to speak about it. And you, in French mass media, you do have new evidences. This is a very big problem in itself. This was what the Constitutional Court should do.
Excuse me to interrupt you, but I cannot stand this because we know the language, we understand the language. I mean, I do. And what I saw is your own democratic institutions and your own security services publishing that set of evidence. So it's not that a journalist on TV is inventing things. He's
it's,
just
the
recapping
journalistic
whatever
French
your
mass
own
media-
institutions.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to
People
interrupt everyone
need
because we're running short on time. Reina Stambuliski, I want to thank you. I want to thank George Piperea for being with us from Strasbourg. Adina Revol in Brittany, Boris Nyman in Brussels. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.